You're single, you don't need a whole house. That's what my sister told me when she marched into my living room like she already owned the place. At first, I laughed, thinking it was some kind of bad joke. But she wasn't smiling. She wanted me to hand over my home so her family could move in, rent-free. When I refused, she called me selfish, ungrateful, and promised everyone in the family would see who I really was. I didn't expect how fast it would all backfire. I always thought family arguments were supposed to be small things, about who brings dessert to Thanksgiving or which cousin forgot to RSVP to a wedding. In my family, though, it was never that simple. My sister, Emily, had this way of turning every little thing into a test of loyalty. If you didn't bend to her will, you weren't family. And I'd spent most of my life trying not to give her reasons to aim her spotlight of drama at me. I bought my house 3 years ago. It wasn't a mansion, but it was mine. I'd saved through years of skipping vacations, driving a beat-up car, and saying no when everyone else was saying yes. Signing the papers felt like a private kind of victory. I was 31, single, and for the first time in my life, I had a place where no one could dictate what I did. I decorated it slowly, room by room, and every corner carried some piece of my own effort. A sofa I hauled up 2 flights of stairs by myself. A scratch dining table I refinished in the garage. Even the squeaky back door reminded me of how far I'd come. Emily, on the other hand, had always lived a little larger than her paycheck allowed. She and her husband rented a place across town, but between his unstable work and her taste for treating herself, money was always tight. Their 2 kids were adorable but expensive, and Emily seemed to think the universe, and everyone around her, owed her for the hardships of parenthood. Still, I tried to be supportive. I babysat when they were in a bind, chipped in for birthday parties, even helped cover a car repair once when their minivan broke down. I told myself it was just what family did. But little by little, I noticed the balance was always one-sided. When I needed help moving, Emily had plans. When I asked her to feed my cat while I was away for a weekend, she forgot. The tension came to a head one Sunday. We were all at my mom's place for dinner, passing dishes of roast chicken and mashed potatoes, when Emily started dropping hints about how cramped their apartment felt. She described the kids' bunk beds, how the laundry piled up, how her husband's tools were scattered everywhere. Then her eyes flicked over to me. "It must be nice," she said, "living all alone in a 3-bedroom house." The table went quiet. I shrugged, tried to laugh it off. "Yeah, it's comfortable." She leaned in, her voice sharp. "Comfortable? More like wasteful. You don't even need all that space. Families need houses. Single people don't." I felt the heat crawl up my neck. Everyone avoided eye contact, stabbing at their food. My mom muttered something about not starting at the table, but the seed was already planted. For the rest of dinner, Emily kept circling back, how her kids deserved a backyard, how her husband needed a garage, how I didn't get it because I was selfish. I left that night unsettled, but I didn't think she'd actually push it further. I figured it was one of her dramatic moods, the kind she'd forget after a week. I didn't realize she was just getting started. The knock on my door that Saturday morning didn't sound like a neighbor dropping by. It was sharp, rapid, like someone trying to announce dominance with their knuckles. I opened it, half expecting a delivery. Instead, Emily stood there with a clipboard tucked under her arm and her husband hovering behind her, arms crossed. "Morning," she said, stepping inside before I even had the chance to invite her. "We need to talk." I blinked, still in sweatpants, clutching a mug of coffee. Okay. About what?" She walked straight into my living room, turned, and looked at me as if she were about to deliver official news. "We've decided it's time to make a change. This house, it makes more sense for us than for you. You don't need 3 bedrooms. We do." For a second, I honestly thought she was joking. I even laughed, the kind of nervous chuckle you make when you're sure you misheard. But Emily's face didn't shift. No grin, no raised eyebrow. Just dead serious. "You want what?" "To move in here." I asked. "Not want," she corrected. "Need. The kids are getting bigger. Our lease is killing us. You're single, you don't need all this space. Families need houses. It's simple logic." Her husband gave a little nod, like he was her backup dancer. I glanced between them, waiting for someone to break into a laugh, but the silence stretched. My stomach sank. They weren't joking. "Emily," I said slowly, "this is my house. I bought it. With my money. You can't just..." She cut me off with a sharp wave of her hand. Don't be dramatic. We're not saying you have to leave tomorrow. We could work out a timeline. Maybe you rent a small apartment nearby. You'd be fine. You don't have kids to think about. We do. I felt the coffee turn bitter in my mouth. The audacity was staggering. So you expect me to give you my home? Just hand it over. Her eyes narrowed. It's not about expecting. It's about doing the right thing. You've always been selfish. Now's your chance to finally step up for family. Something in me snapped at that word, selfish. I'd spent years bending over backward to help her. Babysitting at the last minute, sending money when she came up short, listening to endless rants about how life was unfair. And now she stood in my living room, accusing me of being selfish because I wouldn't give her the roof over my head. I set my mug down, harder than I meant to. No, this conversation is over. You're not moving into my house. Her lips pressed into a thin line, but her voice stayed cold. So that's your answer? You'd rather see your niece and nephew struggle than make a sacrifice you wouldn't even feel. Her husband muttered something under his breath, but Emily shot him a glance that shut him up. She picked up her clipboard, scribbled something, and snapped it shut. Fine, but don't come crying to us when the family sees how selfish you really are. They left without another word, the door slamming behind them. My hands shook so badly I had to sit down. The quiet in the house felt different now, less like peace, more like the calm before a storm. And I had no idea just how far Emily was willing to take this. I didn't hear from Emily for a few days after that bizarre showdown. Part of me hoped she'd cooled off, maybe realized how insane the whole demand had been. But the silence felt loaded, like the pause before someone pulls the trigger. The first sign came at Sunday dinner. My mom was ladling soup into bowls when she sighed and said, "You know, maybe you should think about downsizing. A smaller place might be easier for you to keep up with." I froze, spoon halfway to my mouth. "Where's that coming from?" She gave a shrug, eyes glued to the pot. "Emily just mentioned how much space you have. She's worried you might get lonely rattling around in that house by yourself." I nearly laughed. Lonely? My house wasn't an echo chamber of misery, it was freedom. But hearing my mom say it made my chest tighten. Emily had already started twisting the narrative, planting seeds in people's heads. It got worse when I caught up with my cousin Mark a week later. We were grabbing coffee when he leaned back and said, "Man, you're really not helping yourself. Emily says you flat out refused to help them out. Everyone's talking about it. Help them out." I repeated. She wanted me to give her my house. He winced, like I was the one being unreasonable. She didn't put it like that. She said you've got more than you need, and she's drowning with the kids. People think you're, kind of cold. Cold. Selfish. Wasteful. The words spun around my head like gnats I couldn't swat away. I hadn't realized how quickly Emily could reshape the story, how easily family would nod along without asking for my side. The real gut punch came 2 days later when I logged into the family WhatsApp group. Usually it was memes, updates about birthdays, photos of kids losing teeth. But that day, the thread was buzzing with not-so-subtle digs. "A real family man makes sacrifices," my uncle wrote. "Kids always come first," my aunt chimed in. Even my grandmother, bless her, typed, "One day you'll understand what responsibility means." My phone slipped in my hand as I scrolled. Emily had poisoned the well. She'd managed to cast herself as the struggling mother, me as the selfish bachelor hoarding space. And nobody even bothered to ask me if it was true. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed every favor I'd done for her, every time I'd bent over backward. I thought about the babysitting, the money, the endless emotional labor. And still, she branded me the villain because I wouldn't give her the ultimate prize, my home. I started noticing little shifts, too. A cousin who usually called every week suddenly stopped picking up. My mom's voice sounded cooler on the phone, like she was holding back judgment. Even coworkers who were distantly related through some tangled branch of family tree gave me odd looks at the grocery store. Emily wasn't just angry. She was building a case. And the worst part? It was working. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, a single thought drilling into my skull. If she could twist everyone's view of me this easily, what else was she planning? 2 weeks after the blow-up, I got my confirmation in the ugliest way possible. It was a Thursday night, and I was cleaning up after dinner when my phone buzzed. It was a message from my cousin Laura, someone who usually stayed out of family drama. "You should see what Emily's posting," it read, "before it gets deleted." My stomach dropped. I clicked the link she sent, and it opened straight to Facebook. There it was, a long, self-righteous post from Emily with a smiling picture of her kids in front of their cramped apartment. The caption was brutal. "Sometimes," she wrote, "family turns their back on you when you need them most. Imagine having a big empty house while your niece and nephew share a tiny bunk bed. Imagine choosing greed over love. It hurts, but it's the reality some of us face. Pray for my children." My blood ran cold. She hadn't used my name, but she didn't need to. Everyone in our circle knew exactly who she was talking about. The comments rolled in, dozens of them. "You deserve better, Emily. Some people just don't understand what family means. Stay strong, Mama. Karma always comes back around." Even people I didn't know personally were chiming in. Friends of friends, church acquaintances, moms from her kids' school. My reputation was being gutted in real time, and I hadn't even done anything. I scrolled further, fists tightening. Then I saw it. A private group chat screenshot she had accidentally included. My name highlighted at the top, followed by her message. "He doesn't care about us. He said we're a burden." He laughed when I told him the kids need space. That was a flat-out lie. I had never said those words. I'd never laughed. But in black and white, shared to 100 pairs of eyes, it didn't matter. My hands shook so hard I nearly dropped the phone. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I felt sick, like someone had pulled the rug out from under my entire life. It wasn't just family gossip anymore. It was a public character assassination. I called Emily immediately. She answered on the second ring, her voice syrupy sweet. "Hey, what's up? Don't play dumb." I snapped. "That post. Take it down. Now." A pause, then a little laugh. "Oh, that? Relax. I didn't name you. No one knows. Everyone knows." My voice cracked. "You're painting me as some monster while I sit here and watch my phone blow up with people thinking I abandoned you. This is slander, Emily." Her tone shifted, colder now. "You could fix all of this, you know. Hand over the house. And suddenly you're the hero again. Think about it." I went silent. The audacity, the calculation, it hit me like ice water. This wasn't just about needing help. She was weaponizing shame, twisting the entire family against me to corner me into compliance. "I'm not giving you my house," I said, each word measured like a hammer strike. "Then enjoy being the selfish uncle everyone whispers about." She snapped and hung up. I stood there, phone pressed against my ear long after the call ended, staring at the reflection of my own stunned face in the darkened TV screen. That night, I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. My heart pounded like it wanted to escape my chest. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those comments. Strangers deciding I was cold. Family questioning if I was heartless. Emily smiling somewhere, satisfied with the chaos she'd unleashed. I had thought her outburst in my living room was the climax. But seeing her strategy spelled out online made me realize something chilling. This was just the opening act. She wasn't going to stop until either I gave her my house, or I destroyed myself resisting her. And I wasn't ready for how far she was willing to go next. I thought I'd hit rock bottom with that Facebook post, but a week later I realized Emily wasn't just poisoning family dinners. She was widening the battlefield. It started with my neighbor, Mrs. Grant, a retired teacher who always waved from her porch. I was hauling groceries out of the car when she shuffled over, frowning. "I heard you might be moving out soon. Shame. You've been such a good neighbor." I almost dropped the bag. "Moving out? Who told you that?" She adjusted her glasses. "Oh, Emily mentioned it when she stopped by. Said you were finally doing the right thing for the kids." The words hit me like a punch. She was canvassing the neighborhood now? Telling strangers I was surrendering my house, framing it like some noble act I'd supposedly agreed to. Mrs. Grant smiled sympathetically, like I was already gone. That night, I drove to my mom's, hoping for clarity. Instead, I walked straight into another ambush. My aunt and uncle were there, and before I even sat down, my uncle said, "You're being stubborn. Just think about the kids. Everyone's talking." I turned to my mom. "Did you tell them this? Did Emily tell you I agreed to anything?" Mom looked uncomfortable, folding her hands. She said you were considering it. That maybe you just needed encouragement." I laughed, bitter and sharp. "Encouragement? She's rewriting reality. I never said I'd give her my house." My aunt shook her head. "Why would she lie about that?" The room went silent, and that silence told me everything. They believed her more than me. Driving home, gripping the wheel until my knuckles ached, the realization settled like stone in my gut. Emily wasn't just guilt-tripping me. She was constructing an alternate version of reality where I was the selfish holdout resisting my inevitable duty. And the more she repeated it, the more people believed her. It didn't stop there. At work, a coworker pulled me aside. "Hey, man, is it true you're giving up your house? That's generous. Honestly, I didn't think you had it in you." I stared at him, stunned. Emily had connections through her husband's side. Apparently, she was spreading the story far beyond family. My reputation wasn't just under attack at home. It was bleeding into my professional life. That night, scrolling through my phone, I noticed she'd tagged me in a community fundraising post. "Every dollar helps us transition into our new home," it read, with a photo of her kids holding a hand-painted sign. "Thank you, Uncle." My mouth went dry. She wasn't just telling people I was giving her the house. She was monetizing the lie. Donations were already pouring in, with comments like, "Your brother is such a blessing, and this restores my faith in family." I sat there shaking, staring at the screen. She had hijacked my identity, turned me into a character in her sob story. And if I stayed quiet, I was complicit. That was the moment I realized. This wasn't just family drama. This was war. And the longer I waited to fight back, the more ground I'd lose. I barely slept after seeing that fundraiser post. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my phone on the nightstand lighting up with notifications, people tagging me, praising me, assuming I'd done this incredible act of generosity. My name was being used like a prop in her play, and the applause was for a performance I hadn't agreed to. Every option I turned over in my mind felt like a trap. If I stayed quiet, the lie would harden into truth. People would keep donating, Emily would collect sympathy and cash, and I'd be the silent backdrop to her success story. But if I spoke out, what would it look like? A man attacking his sister publicly, arguing against providing for children. I could already hear the backlash. Cold, heartless, petty. I thought about revenge, too. Petty, messy revenge. Exposing all the times I'd bailed her out, the debts she never repaid, the babysitting I'd done while she ran off for self-care weekends. I could plaster screenshots, receipts, proof all over the same platform she was using. But then what? Wouldn't that just make me look bitter? Like I was desperate to protect my ego at the expense of family? Another part of me whispered about legal action. Could this be defamation? Fraud? She was collecting money under false pretenses, dragging my name into it. But the thought of dragging the family into court made my chest tighten. I knew exactly how they'd spin that. He took his sister to court instead of helping her kids. I paced the living room that night, the house that suddenly felt less like a home and more like a fortress under siege. Anger surged in waves, but under it was something worse, shame. Shame that everyone believed her. Shame that I hadn't stopped it sooner. Shame that maybe, deep down, I did look selfish by comparison. By dawn, one thing was clear. I couldn't just let her write my story for me. I had to take control back. The question was how. By Monday, I'd made up my mind. Silence was no longer an option. If Emily wanted to drag me into the spotlight, then fine, I'd step into it. But on my own terms. The first move was small, almost cautious. I went into the family WhatsApp group, the same one where her digs about family sacrifices had been echoing for weeks. I typed, deleted, retyped 3 times before finally hitting send. Just to be clear, I am not giving away my house. I've never agreed to that. Please stop spreading misinformation. My finger hovered over the screen as the typing bubbles popped up. My aunt replied first. "Emily told us you promised. Are you saying she lied?" Then my cousin. "This is awkward, man. She's been telling everyone you were a hero." And finally, Emily herself. Wow. Imagine humiliating your sister in front of everyone instead of just talking privately. Shows your true colors. The flood of messages that followed was worse than I expected. Half the group jumped to her defense, parroting lines about the kids and doing the right thing. But a few, just a few, stayed quiet. And I noticed. Quiet could mean doubt. Doubt could be useful. That night, I started digging. I pulled receipts from when I covered her car repairs, Venmo transfers for emergencies, texts where she begged me to babysit because no one else would. I wasn't ready to blast it all publicly yet, but I needed ammunition. 2 days later, the chance came. Another post appeared on her Facebook, thanking generous donors and hinting at how the transition into our new home was already underway. She tagged me again, like I was the silent benefactor. This time, I didn't stay silent. I commented directly. "I have not given away my house. Please don't donate under false assumptions. Emily, stop tagging me. The backlash was instant. A few strangers attacked me. Wow, bitter much? But others paused. Questions started trickling in beneath my comment. Wait, so this isn't true? Emily, can you clarify? The cracks were showing. Emily texted me that night in fury. How dare you embarrass me like that? You couldn't just let it go? I stared at her words, a strange calm washing over me. For the first time, I wasn't just reacting. I was drawing a line. My reply was short. If you keep lying about me, I'll show everyone the proof. Stop now. I didn't sleep much, but the shift was undeniable. The narrative wasn't entirely hers anymore. People had seen me speak up. They'd seen doubt. For a brief moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, the nightmare was ending. But I couldn't have been more wrong. For a few days, the storm actually seemed to die down. Emily didn't post about me. The fundraiser slowed to a trickle, and the WhatsApp group went back to its usual chatter, birthday photos, memes, the occasional chain prayer. I breathed for the first time in weeks. Neighbors stopped asking if I was moving, coworkers dropped the jokes, and the house felt like mine again. I even convinced myself that maybe Emily had realized she'd pushed too far. Maybe my warning had sunk in. One evening I sat on the porch with a beer, watching the sun dip behind the rooftops, and felt a flicker of peace. The silence wasn't oppressive anymore. It felt earned. For the first time since this all began, I thought, maybe it's over. Then, a ping on my phone. A message from Mark, my cousin. Hey, just a heads up. You should probably see this before it blows up. My chest tightened as I clicked the link. It wasn't Facebook this time. It was a GoFundMe page. Brand new. The headline screamed, "Help us escape our cold-hearted brother's neglect." And there, right in the description, Emily had written my name in full. The calm I'd been savoring shattered like glass. The GoFundMe page hit me like a sucker punch. My name wasn't hinted at, it was spelled out. Right there in the headline. Our brother refuses to help us, even though he has everything. We're left struggling. Scrolling down, I saw photos of Emily's kids looking pitiful, like some charity ad. Her husband stood in the background of one picture, arms crossed, expression grim. And beneath each photo was a caption twisting the knife. Meanwhile, my brother lives alone in a 3-bedroom house, unwilling to share even one room. He laughs at our struggles while we drown in bills. He'd rather see us evicted than make the smallest sacrifice. It was like she'd taken every ounce of shame she could conjure and poured it into the page. And people ate it up. Donations were pouring in by the hour. $20 here, $50 there. One woman had dropped $200 with the comment, "Praying for you and your kids." Some men just don't understand what it means to be a father figure. Father figure. That one made me slam my fist against the table so hard my coffee spilled. Emily wasn't just painting me as selfish. She was framing me as some kind of failed man, someone who abandoned his family, even though I wasn't their dad, wasn't responsible for any of it. By the next morning, the fundraiser had hit $3,000. My phone buzzed with texts from extended relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. How could you do this? You're really leaving them out in the cold? Shame on you. At work, 2 colleagues cornered me in the break room. Hey, we saw that page. That's rough, man. But why not just let them stay with you? It's just a house. I could barely breathe. Emily had poisoned the well so thoroughly that the lies weren't just family gossip anymore. They were infecting every corner of my life. That night, I pulled up the fundraiser again, hands trembling. I noticed something that made my blood run cold. She'd listed my home address in the description. She claimed it was where donors could send support packages for the kids once they moved in. My house. My private address. On the internet. I sat frozen, staring at the screen, then jumped when my phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. Hope the kids like their new backyard. The air left my lungs. I realized people now thought of my house as Emily's future property. Strangers could be showing up at any time, dropping things off, maybe worse. That was my breaking point. I screenshotted everything, the GoFundMe, the comments, the post with my address. I called a lawyer the next morning. This is defamation, I told him. She's using my name and my property to collect money under false pretenses. And she's endangering me by posting my address. The lawyer was calm, professional, but I could tell even he was shocked. You have a solid case. At the very least, the fundraiser violates platform policies. And if you want, we can pursue damages. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of control. This wasn't just family drama anymore. This was fraud, and I had the receipts. But even as I started drafting the takedown request with the lawyer, a darker thought coiled in my chest. Emily wasn't going to back down. She'd spin this too, paint me as the brother dragging his own sister to court. The public humiliation would only grow. And yet, I knew I couldn't let her win. Because if I stayed quiet now, she'd own not just my house, but my name, my reputation, and my future. I thought filing the takedown request would feel like progress, like striking back after weeks of being cornered. But instead, it just made the backlash louder. The GoFundMe vanished overnight. $3,000 frozen, comments erased. And within hours, Emily exploded online. Wow. Imagine reporting your own sister's fundraiser when she's just trying to keep a roof over her kids' heads. Imagine silencing the voices of people who care. My brother doesn't just refuse to help us. He actively works against us. She tagged me directly this time. Full name. Screenshots of the takedown notice. My inbox lit up with messages, some from people I knew, most from strangers. You're disgusting. Hope you rot in that empty house. Better pray karma doesn't come for you. I sat at the kitchen table, phone buzzing like a hornet's nest, and felt something hollow out inside me. My mom called later that evening, her voice heavy with disappointment. Did you really have to go that far? Court threats? Reporting her fundraiser. Mom, I said, my voice cracking. She used my address. She put me in danger. She lied about everything. I had no choice. But she didn't want to hear it. All I know is those kids are caught in the middle. And you. She stopped herself, sighed. You've changed. I stared at the phone long after the call ended, her words echoing. You've changed. Maybe I had. I was angrier, colder, quicker to lash out. But was that my fault? Or had Emily dragged me into becoming someone I didn't recognize? The weight pressed down harder when I tried to step outside for air. A package sat on my porch, no label, no return address. Inside was a pair of tiny sneakers, brand new, with a note. They deserve better than you. I sat on the steps, sneakers in my lap, and for the first time in this whole nightmare, I felt truly broken. It wasn't just Emily anymore. The narrative had escaped her hands and taken on a life of its own. Strangers, family, even co-workers, they all saw me as the villain. The house that once felt like freedom now felt like a cage, every wall echoing with accusations I couldn't silence. I considered, just for a moment, giving in, signing the deed over, walking away, letting her have it. Maybe it would end the noise, the shame, the endless pressure. Maybe peace was worth more than pride. But then I looked down at the sneakers again, those pristine little shoes meant to shame me, and felt a spark ignite beneath the rubble of my exhaustion. If I gave up now, Emily wouldn't stop. She'd learned that lies and pressure worked, and she'd use that power again and again. No, I couldn't let this be the end. I realized what I had to do, not just defend myself, but expose her for what she really was, once and for all. I knew I couldn't fight Emily with whispers, screenshots, or carefully worded texts. She'd built her campaign in public, and that's exactly where it had to come crashing down. The family reunion was my chance. It was at my mom's house, a yearly gathering where aunts, uncles, cousins, and neighbors all drifted in and out. Normally, it was laughter, barbecue smoke, and kids chasing each other across the yard. But this year, the tension crackled before I even walked through the door. Conversations hushed when I entered. Eyes lingered, measuring me, some with pity, most with judgment. Emily was already holding court at the picnic table, telling some story with her arms folded dramatically. She barely glanced at me when I approached, but the smirk playing at the corner of her mouth told me she knew she'd already won the audience. I waited until the plates were filled and the chatter reached its peak, then stood up, holding my phone. My hands were steady this time. I've kept quiet long enough, I said, projecting my voice over the yard. Heads turned, forks froze. Since Emily's been sharing our family business with the world, it's time you all heard my side, along with proof. Emily's smirk faltered. This isn't the time. Sure it is. I cut her off, tapping my phone. Here's Emily, begging me for money last year. Car repair? I paid it. Here she is again, Venmo transfer, rent shortfall. I covered it. Babysitting texts, weekends, emergencies, I was always there. I scrolled through screenshots, reading them aloud. Gasps rippled through the crowd. People leaned in closer. I wasn't just telling them. I was showing them, line by line, the record of years I'd quietly carried her burdens. Then I pulled up the GoFundMe. And here's where she listed my house as if it was hers. My address, for strangers to see. Donations built on a lie, painting me as a monster. I turned the phone so the crowd could see the screenshots. Her headline, my name, the donations, the comments. Emily's face went pale. She tried to snatch the phone, but I held it high. You put my life in danger. You dragged my name through mud. And for what? For money. For attention. For a house you didn't earn. Silence. Just the sizzle of the grill in the background. My uncle cleared his throat, muttering, Madre de Dios. Emily stammered. You don't understand. I was desperate. Desperation doesn't give you the right to lie, I snapped. My voice didn't shake this time. You wanted me to look selfish so you could look like a saint. But the truth is here, in your own words. And everyone can see it. I lowered my arm, letting the phone fall to my side. You branded me selfish. But you exposed yourself. You wanted to bury me under bills, shame, and lies. Instead, you're the one sinking under the weight of it all. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, slowly, conversation started again. But this time, the looks weren't at me. They were at her. Disbelief, disappointment, disgust. Even her husband looked away, jaw tight, refusing to meet her eyes. Emily stood abruptly, muttering something about not needing this, and stormed off toward the driveway. No one followed. The sound of her car peeling away was swallowed by the murmurs of family finally connecting the dots. I sat back down, heart pounding, but lighter than I'd felt in months. For once, I wasn't the villain in the room. She was. And this time, no amount of spin could save her.